The council chamber stretched wide and tall, filled with representatives from 63 different species. Today, the chamber felt smaller than usual. Fear had a way of making even the largest spaces feel cramped. Ambassador Min Jun sat in the human delegation section, his hands folded calmly on the smooth table before him. He watched as the counselor from the Vaxian Empire stood to speak. The Vaxian's skin changed colors rapidly, shifting from blue to deep purple. Min Jun had learned long ago that this meant extreme distress. 12 species, the Vaxian said, his voice trembling. 12 entire species have been destroyed by the Krythax swarm in just 2 years. Their worlds are empty now. Their cultures are gone. Their children are dead. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Min Jun had seen the reports. He had studied the images. The Krythax did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved to the next world. "We have tried everything," continued a Rel representative, her 4 arms gesturing helplessly. "We have used our best military tactics. We have sent our finest warriors. We have combined our fleets. Nothing works. The Krythax adapt to every strategy we use. They learn from every battle, and they never stop coming." Min Jun knew what was coming next. He had known for weeks, ever since the council had requested this emergency session. He had already sent word back to Earth. Preparations had already begun. The High Chancellor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, floated to the center of the chamber. Its voice echoed from every wall at once. "We face a choice that many of us never thought we would consider," the Chancellor said. 300 years ago, this council made a decision. We banned one species from participating in any military conflict. We did this because their methods were too brutal, too effective, too frightening. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few looked directly at Min Jun. "We banned humanity from the battlefield," the Chancellor continued. "Today, we must discuss whether to lift that ban." The chamber erupted into noise. Some species shouted in agreement. Others roared in protest. Min Jun remained still and quiet, waiting. A Torgan general stood, his scaled body towering over most other representatives. "Have you all forgotten what humans did during the sector wars? Have you forgotten why we banned them?" "Tell us," said a younger representative, one whose species had only joined the council 50 years ago. "Most of us were not alive during those wars." The Torgan's eyes narrowed. Humans did not fight like civilized species. They did not follow the rules of honorable combat. They used tricks. They used fear. They made their enemies afraid to fight. "We were losing badly before the humans joined our side," added a Kelvin representative, his voice thoughtful. "The Vrax were winning every battle. They had better weapons, better ships, better soldiers. Then humanity entered the war, and everything changed." "Changed how?" asked the younger representative. "Humans did not try to match the Vrax in firepower," the Kelvin explained. "Instead, they studied them. They learned how the Vrax thought, how they fought, what they valued. Then humans used that knowledge against them." The Torgan general interrupted, his voice sharp. "They were savage. They attacked supply lines. They destroyed resource centers. They made the Vrax afraid to sleep, afraid to eat, afraid to communicate with each other. The Vrax were not defeated in battle. They were broken in spirit." "And they surrendered," the Kelvin said quietly. "The war ended with minimal casualties compared to what we had been suffering. Humans achieved in 6 months what we could not achieve in 3 years." "At what cost?" demanded the Torgan. "The humans changed warfare itself. After they were done, no one could fight the old way anymore. Everyone had to adapt or die. The rules we had followed for thousands of years meant nothing." Min Jun finally spoke, his voice calm and clear. "You banned us because we won too completely. because we made war too efficient, because we refused to die honorably when we could live cleverly. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. "You are not wrong to fear us," Minjun continued. "We learned warfare from fighting ourselves. For thousands of years, humans fought other humans. We learned every lesson that war teaches. We learned them in blood over and over, until we became very, very good at killing." A shudder ran through several representatives. "But we also learned when to stop," Minjun said, his voice softer now. "We learned that being good at war does not mean we should make war. We accepted your ban. We became traders, diplomats, teachers. For 300 years, we have been peaceful. We have followed your rules. We have earned your trust in every way except one." The High Chancellor's crystal form pulsed with light. "The question before this council is simple. Do we lift the ban? Do we ask humanity to fight once more?" The vote took 3 hours. Species argued passionately on both sides. Some feared the Krythax more than they feared humanity. Others believed that unleashing humans would be worse than facing the swarm. In the end, the vote passed by a narrow margin. The High Chancellor addressed Minjun directly. "Ambassador, the Council hereby requests that humanity provide military assistance against the Krythax swarm. Will your people accept?" Minjun stood slowly. He had already sent the messages. The wheels were already turning. But the Council did not need to know that humanity had been ready for this moment for 300 years. "We will help," Minjun said simply. "But understand this. You are not asking us to fight alongside you. You are asking us to fight as only humans can fight. That means we will not follow your rules of engagement. We will not limit ourselves to honorable combat. We will do whatever is necessary to win." "Will you be brutal?" asked the Torgan general, his voice thick with concern. Minjun met his eyes. "We will be effective. To some species, those words mean the same thing." He tapped his communication device. "I need to make arrangements. We have some people to wake up." As Minjun left the chamber, he heard the whispers starting behind him. Fear and hope mixed together in equal measure. The galaxy was about to remember why humanity had been banned. More importantly, the galaxy was about to remember why humanity had been asked to fight in the first place. Deep in human space, in facilities that had been maintained but unused for 3 centuries, cryogenic systems began to activate. Veterans who had been sleeping for longer than some species had existed started to wake. The war was about to change. The facility floated in deep space, far from any inhabited world. It had no name, only a designation code that few beings in the galaxy knew existed. Minjun's shuttle approached slowly, following protocols that were 300 years old, but still perfectly functional. Inside the facility, lights activated one by one as Minjun walked through corridors that had been dark for centuries. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He reached the central chamber and placed his hand on a scanner. The system recognized his genetic pattern and began the awakening sequence. Cryogenic pods lined the walls, thousands of them stretching into the distance. Inside each pod was a human who had chosen to sleep rather than retire. Warriors who had been too young to give up, too skilled to waste, too dangerous to leave active in a peaceful galaxy. The first pod opened with a hiss of cold air. A woman stepped out, her movements careful and controlled, despite 300 years of sleep. She was tall and lean, her black hair cut short, her eyes sharp and alert. She looked at Minjun and spoke in Korean. "How long?" 307 years, Commander Seo-yeon, Minjun replied in the same language. "The council has lifted the ban." Seo-yeon stretched her arms, testing her muscles. The cryogenic process preserved the body perfectly, but it always took a moment to remember how to use it properly. "What kind of threat?" "A species called the Krythax. They are a swarm intelligence. They have destroyed 12 species in 2 years. The Council's military forces cannot stop them. Cannot or will not? Seo Yan asked. Min Jun smiled slightly. An excellent question. Perhaps both. More pods were opening now. Men and women of various ages emerged, all wearing the same expression of calm readiness. These were not soldiers who panicked or rushed. They were professionals who had survived humanity's last wars by being smart, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. Seo Yan walked to a console and began accessing the facility's database. Information flowed across the screen, 3 centuries of galactic history compressed into digestible segments. She read quickly, her expression never changing. "They have been fighting honorably," she said after several minutes. "The Council species still follow their rules of engagement. They announce their attacks. They avoid civilian targets when possible. They give enemies time to evacuate." "That is their way," Min Jun said. "And the Krithax? They have no rules except survival and expansion." Seo Yan nodded slowly. "So the Council has been fighting with one hand tied behind their back while the Krithax use every advantage available. How many did the Council lose before they decided to call us?" Min Jun pulled up casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. Billions dead. Entire worlds sterilized. Fleets destroyed. "They waited too long," Seo Yan said, her voice flat. "They let their pride cost them millions of lives. Now they come to us because they have no other choice." "Does that matter?" Min Jun asked. "No," Seo Yan admitted. "Those 12 species are still dead. The Krithax will not stop, and if we do nothing, more will die. We will help because it is the right thing to do, not because the Council finally asked nicely." A Torgan military liaison entered the chamber, escorted by human security. He stared at the awakening soldiers with obvious fear in his eyes. Seo Yan approached him and offered her hand in the human gesture of greeting. The Torgan stared at her hand for a long moment before carefully shaking it. "I am General Krath," he said. "I have been assigned to observe your preparations and coordinate with Council forces. Commander Seo Yan, I will be leading the human response." She gestured to the thousands of pods still opening. "These are my people. We are ready to begin operations immediately." Krath's scales rippled with nervousness. "I must ask you questions. The Council needs to understand what you plan to do." "Ask," Seo Yan said simply. "Will you follow standard military protocols? Will you coordinate with Council fleets? Will you limit collateral damage?" Seo Yan considered the questions carefully. "We will coordinate when it makes tactical sense. We will limit collateral damage to civilian populations because that is how humans wage war. We will not follow standard military protocols because those protocols have failed completely against the Krithax." "Then what will you do?" "We will study them," Seo Yan said. "We will learn how they think, how they communicate, what they fear. Then we will use that knowledge to defeat them." Krath's translator struggled with the human concept she had just expressed. "You will learn what they fear? Why does that matter?" "Because every living thing fears something," Seo Yan explained. "Even a swarm intelligence has weaknesses. Even a species without individual identity has things it values. We find those things, then we take them away." "That is not honorable combat," Krath said quietly. "No," Seo Yan agreed. "It is effective combat. You asked us to help. You did not ask us to lose honorably. The Krithax have killed billions. I do not plan to fight them fairly. I plan to win." Over the next several days, the facility became a hub of activity. Human soldiers reviewed 300 years of technological advances. They studied the Krithax, watching every recorded engagement, analyzing every tactic the swarm had used. Krath watched them work with growing unease. The humans asked questions that made him uncomfortable. What do the Krithax value most? How do they respond to losses? What makes them change tactics? Can they feel fear? These were not the questions of honorable warriors. These were the questions of hunters studying prey. One evening, Krath found Seo Yan studying footage of a Krathax attack. The swarm ships moved in perfect coordination, overwhelming a council defense fleet with sheer numbers and precise timing. "They fight well," Krath observed. "They fight predictably," Seo Yan corrected. "They always attack the same way. Overwhelming force, direct assault, no deception. They win through superiority of numbers and coordination." "How will you defeat superior numbers?" Seo Yan smiled, and Krath found the expression deeply unsettling. "We will make them afraid to use those numbers. We will make them doubt their coordination. We will make them question every decision. You cannot make a swarm intelligence feel fear." "Watch us," Seo Yan said. The human fleet began to assemble. Ships that had been mothballed for 3 centuries were brought back to service. Weapon systems that had been banned were reactivated. Soldiers who had been sleeping were now wide awake and ready. Krath sent daily reports back to the council. Each report expressed more concern than the last. The humans were not preparing to fight a war. They were preparing to wage something else entirely. Something that followed no rules, Krath understood. On the final day before departure, Minjun found Seo Yan on the observation deck, looking out at the assembled fleet. "Do you think we can win?" Minjun asked. "Yes," Seo Yan said without hesitation. "The Krathax are effective. They are coordinated. They are numerous. But they fight only one way. They do not adapt. They do not improvise. That makes them predictable. And humans? We adapt to everything. We improvise constantly. We learn from every mistake. That is why the council banned us. Not because we were brutal, but because we never stopped getting better at warfare." The fleet departed the next morning. Thousands of human ships, each one carrying soldiers who had fought in humanity's last wars. Warriors who understood that war was not about honor or glory. War was about winning so that peace could return. Krath stood on the bridge of his observation ship, watching the human fleet jump to faster-than-light travel. He sent one final message to the council. "The humans are coming. May the universe have mercy on the Krathax, because I do not believe the humans will." The Centaurus cluster burned. 4 planets, each home to billions of beings, were under siege by the Krathax swarm. Council fleets had been fighting for 6 weeks, following every military protocol, executing every standard defensive strategy. They had lost 60% of their ships and saved 0 planets. Seo Yan's fleet arrived at the edge of the system and immediately went dark. All active sensors shut down. All communications ceased. The human ships drifted on minimal power, nearly invisible against the background of space. On the bridge of his observation vessel, General Krath watched in confusion. "Why have they stopped? Why are they not engaging?" His Kelvin tactical officer checked her instruments. "I cannot detect them anymore. They have disappeared from our sensors." "They are right there," Krath said, pointing at the window where he could still see the human fleet with his own eyes. "How can you not detect them? They are using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors register them as debris or background radiation." Krath contacted Seo Yan directly. "Commander, why have you not engaged the enemy? 4 planets are under attack. Every moment we delay, more innocents die." Seo Yan's voice came through calm and measured. "We are observing. We are learning. We will engage when we understand the enemy. We have provided you with all our intelligence on the Krathax. You have provided us with data on how they fight you. We need to understand how they think." The human fleet remained dark and silent for 12 hours. During that time, the Council fleet lost 15 more ships trying to defend the 4th planet. Krath grew increasingly frustrated, sending message after message demanding that the humans engage. Finally, Seo Yan responded, We are ready. Tell your forces to withdraw to the outer system. Withdraw? We cannot abandon these planets. Your forces cannot save them. You can only die trying. Withdraw now, or you will interfere with our operations. Krath gave the order, though it hurt him deeply. The Council fleet pulled back, leaving the planets defenseless. The Krythax swarm moved in for the final assault, their ships converging on the largest population centers. Then, the humans struck. They did not announce their attack. They did not challenge the enemy to honorable combat. They simply appeared from nowhere and began destroying Krythax ships with surgical precision. But it was not the destruction that surprised Krath. It was the method. Human ships targeted Krythax communication nodes first. Within minutes, the swarm's coordination began to falter. Ships that had moved in perfect unison suddenly became confused, breaking formation, firing on each other in their confusion. They are disrupting the swarm intelligence, Krath's tactical officer explained. The Krythax share one mind across many ships. The humans are cutting off parts of that mind. Then the humans began broadcasting. Every Krythax ship in the system received the same message. It was not a demand for surrender. It was footage of the battle itself, showing Krythax ships being destroyed easily, showing the swarm's coordination falling apart, showing their inevitable defeat. Why are they showing the enemy what is happening? Krath demanded. Sioyan answered over the open channel. Because the Krythax learn from every battle. We want them to learn from this one. We want them to see that humans fight differently. We want them to understand that they cannot predict us. The battle continued for 3 hours. The humans used tactics that made Krath deeply uncomfortable. They allowed some Krythax ships to escape. They specifically targeted ships that were trying to maintain swarm cohesion. They broadcast continuous footage of Krythax failures, ensuring that every part of the swarm intelligence witnessed their defeat. When the battle ended, the Krythax had been completely driven from the system. The 4 planets were saved. The human fleet had lost only 2 ships. Krath's entire career in the military had never prepared him for what he had just witnessed. The humans had not simply won a battle. They had won it in a way that seemed designed to teach the Krythax a lesson. He boarded Seoyan's command ship to deliver his report and his concerns. He found her in the strategy center, reviewing footage of the battle with her senior officers. That was not honorable combat, Krath said without preamble. No, Seoyan agreed. It was smart combat. You deliberately caused confusion in the enemy ranks. You broadcast their failures to humiliate them. You let some of them escape instead of destroying them all. Yes, Seoyan said patiently. We did all of those things. Why? Seoyan pulled up a tactical display. The Krythax are a swarm intelligence. They learn from every experience and share that knowledge across their entire species. If we had simply destroyed them all here, the swarm would have analyzed the wreckage and adapted their tactics. But by letting some escape, we ensured they would carry a message back to the rest of the swarm. What message? That humans are unpredictable. That we do not follow their rules. That fighting us is dangerous in ways they cannot anticipate. Seoyan zoomed in on the footage of escaping Krythax ships. Those ships are now spreading fear through the swarm. They are making other Krythax units hesitate. They are introducing doubt into a species that has never experienced doubt before. Krath's scales rippled with distress. You are weaponizing fear. Yes. That is not how civilized species wage war. Seoyan turned to face him fully. General Krath, I respect your culture and your traditions, but the Krythax do not care about civilization. They do not honor your rules of engagement. They simply kill everything in their path. You asked us to stop them. You did not ask us to stop them politely. There must be limits, Krath insisted. There must be rules that separate us from them. There are limits, Seoyan said. We have not targeted civilians. We have not destroyed planets. We have not committed any atrocities. We have simply fought to win using every advantage we possess. One of those advantages is that we understand psychology. We understand fear. We understand how to make an enemy hesitate. One of Seo Yon's officers, a young woman named Haye Jin, spoke up. "General Krath, may I ask you a question?" Krath nodded. "How many council soldiers died in the 6 weeks before we arrived?" Krath checked his data. "Approximately 400,000. "And how many died today, fighting alongside us?" "None. Your tactics required our withdrawal." "Exactly," Ye-Jin said. "Our methods make you uncomfortable. They seem brutal or unfair. But they save lives. Your honorable combat was costing 400,000 lives every 6 weeks. Our dishonorable combat cost 0 lives today. Which method is truly more moral?" Krath had no answer for that. Over the next several days, reports came in from across the battle zone. The Krythax were changing their behavior. They were no longer attacking systems with the same confidence. They were hesitating. In 3 different sectors, swarm units had withdrawn when they detected human ship signatures, even when the humans were vastly outnumbered. The Council's military analysts were shocked. The Krythax had never retreated before. They had never shown fear. But now, after just 1 battle with humans, they were avoiding conflict. Krath compiled his report for the Council, trying to find the right words to describe what he had witnessed. Finally, he settled on simple truth. The humans do not fight to win battles. They fight to win wars. They understand that the goal is not to destroy every enemy, but to make the enemy stop wanting to fight. They weaponize psychology as effectively as they weaponize their ships. They are terrifying. They are effective. And they may be the only thing that can save us from the Krythax swarm. He paused before adding the final line. The Council was right to ban them 300 years ago. We were also right to unban them now. The question is whether we will have the courage to ban them again when this war is over. 3 months after the Battle of Centaurus Cluster, the war had changed completely. The Krythax swarm, which had been unstoppable for 2 years, was now retreating from system after system. They were not being defeated in massive battles. They were simply leaving. In the Council's Strategic Command Center, military leaders from dozens of species gathered to review the situation. General Krath stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire conflict zone. Red areas indicated Krythax-controlled space, blue showed Council territory, and green marked human operational zones. "The Krythax are avoiding any system where humans are present," Krath explained, highlighting the green zones. "Even when they have overwhelming numerical superiority, they withdraw when human ships arrive." A Rel admiral leaned forward, her forearms crossed. "How is this possible? The Krythax do not feel fear. They are a swarm intelligence. They calculate risk and reward mathematically." "The humans have changed that calculation," Krath said. "Every engagement with human forces has resulted in Krythax defeat. But more importantly, every engagement has been unpredictable. The swarm cannot model human tactics. They cannot anticipate human strategies. Uncertainty has become a weapon." On the far side of the galaxy, Seo Yan stood in her command center, reviewing the latest intelligence. Her senior staff surrounded her, each one focused on a different aspect of the campaign. Commander Jin Ho, her tactical officer, pulled up a new report. "We have confirmation. The Krythax have completely abandoned the Outer Rim sectors. 23 systems liberated without a single shot fired." "They are learning," Seo Yan said with satisfaction. "Good." "Is it?" asked Hye-Jin, who had been promoted to strategic operations. "We are winning without fighting, which should be ideal. But the Council representatives seem more afraid of us than they are grateful." Seo Yan nodded. "They asked us to save them. They did not expect us to be so effective. Now they are wondering what they have unleashed." The human strategy had evolved beyond simple military victories. SEO Yon had implemented what she called ghost operations. Human ships would appear in a system, destroy a small number of Krythax vessels, then vanish before the main swarm could respond. Sometimes they would leave no survivors. Other times they would leave one ship alive to report what happened. The reports were never consistent. Sometimes humans attacked with overwhelming force, sometimes with minimal ships. Sometimes they targeted military installations, sometimes supply lines, sometimes they would arrive, do nothing, and leave. The Krythax could not predict human behavior, and for a species that relied on pattern recognition and shared intelligence, unpredictability was more frightening than any weapon. But Seo Yan's most controversial operation was about to begin. A Krythax queen had been captured alive during a raid on a swarm relay station. The queen was not a royal leader, but rather a coordinator node, a biological processing center for swarm communications. She was currently held in a research facility, guarded by both human and council security forces. When word of the capture reached the council, demands came immediately. Some species wanted the queen executed. Others wanted her returned to the swarm as a gesture of mercy. A few wanted her put on trial for war crimes. Seo Yan refused all requests. She is valuable intelligence. We need to understand how the swarm thinks. General Krath had been assigned as permanent liaison to the human forces. He had watched Seo Yan's methods grow more aggressive over the past months, and he felt he needed to draw a line somewhere. Commander, the Council is expressing serious concerns about your treatment of the captured queen. We have not harmed her, Seo Yan replied. She is being kept in optimal conditions for her biology. We are simply studying her. What does that mean? It means we are learning how the swarm intelligence functions, how queens process information, how they communicate with the larger swarm, how they make decisions. Krath's scales darkened. You are reading her mind. We are understanding her thought patterns, yes. That is a violation of her rights as a sentient being. Seo Yan fixed him with a hard stare. General, this queen has participated in the deaths of billions. Her swarm has destroyed 12 entire species. She has no legal rights under council law because the Krythax have never acknowledged council authority. We are not torturing her. We are not causing her pain. We are learning from her, and that knowledge will save lives. The debate over the Queen's treatment raged in the council chambers while Seo Yan and her team continued their research. What they learned was fascinating and terrifying. The Krythax swarm was not evil. It did not kill for pleasure or conquest. It simply consumed resources and expanded, like a biological algorithm following its programming. Individual Krythax had no concept of self. They were nodes in a network, no more individually important than a single neuron in a brain. But queens were different. Queens had enough individual processing power to experience something like consciousness. They could feel. They could fear. They could understand loss. And through studying this queen, Seo Yan learned what the Krythax valued most: efficiency and survival of the swarm as a whole. She took that knowledge and weaponized it. Human forces began targeting Krythax resource operations specifically. They did not destroy swarm ships when possible. They destroyed the infrastructure that supported those ships: food production centers, fuel refineries, breeding colonies. Each attack was calculated to cause maximum disruption to swarm efficiency while minimizing the actual death count. The message was clear. Humans could destroy the swarm completely if they chose to, but they were deliberately showing restraint. That restraint was, paradoxically, more frightening than total war would have been. A council ethics committee arrived at Seo Yan's headquarters, demanding to speak with her about human tactics. The committee was led by a Vaxian philosopher named Zell, whose skin remained permanently purple with distress. Commander Seo Yan, we must discuss your methods, Zell began. What you are doing goes beyond normal military operations. We are fighting a war, Seo-Yon said simply. You are waging psychological warfare on a scale we have never witnessed. You are deliberately traumatizing an entire species. Yes. The blunt admission seemed to shock the committee. Zell's skin flashed through several colors before settling back to purple. You admit it? You are proud of this? I am not proud. I am effective. The Krythax have killed billions. They would kill billions more if we let them. We are stopping them using the most efficient method possible, making them choose not to fight. A Kelvin committee member spoke up. But at what cost to your own morality? You are becoming the thing you fight against. Seo-Yon stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. No, the Krythax kill without thought, without choice, without mercy. They are a biological imperative made manifest. We kill when necessary, but we choose to show mercy when possible. We could exterminate them. We have the capability, but we are trying to teach them to stop, not destroy them completely. By making them afraid, Zell said. Yes, by making them understand that fighting humans costs more than it gains. By making the mathematical equation favor peace instead of war. Hyejin entered the room with a new report. Commander, we have confirmation. Krythax forces are withdrawing from the Halar system. That makes 41 systems liberated in the past month. The Ethics Committee members exchanged glances. 41 systems without major battles meant potentially billions of lives saved. How many Council soldiers have died this month? Asked a REL member quietly. Krath checked his data. 73,000. And in the month before humans arrived? 420,000. The numbers spoke louder than any argument. Human methods were brutal, manipulative, and psychologically devastating. They were also saving millions of lives that would have been lost to honorable but ineffective combat. Zell stood to leave, his skin now a mixture of purple and resigned blue. I do not like your methods, Commander. I find them disturbing and contrary to everything civilized species should value, but I cannot argue with your results. You are saving lives. You are winning a war we were losing badly. I just hope we do not lose ourselves in the process. After the committee left, Krath remained. They are right to be concerned, he said. What you are doing changes warfare forever. After this, no species will fight the old way again. Good, Seo-Yon said. The old way was getting everyone killed. But what happens when the war ends? What happens when there is no enemy to fight? Will humans remember how to stop? Seo-Yon met his eyes. General Krath, humanity learned these lessons by fighting ourselves for thousands of years. We became so good at war that we nearly destroyed our own species. We stopped. We chose peace. We have not forgotten how to stop. We have simply remembered, when necessary, how to fight. She pulled up a new tactical display. The Krythax Central Hive World. We have located it. We can end this war in one strike. But I am not going to attack it. Why not? Because I am going to give them a choice. They can continue fighting and face extinction, or they can stop and survive. The Krythax are not evil. They are just following their nature. We are going to show them that their nature can change. Krath looked at the human commander and felt a deep sense of awe mixed with fear. The humans were not just winning a war. They were trying to change an entire species' understanding of what war meant. He just hoped the galaxy was ready for what humans were teaching them. The Krythax homeworld hung in space like a massive hive, its surface covered in organic structures that pulsed with life. This was the heart of the swarm, where the great queens coordinated their species across hundreds of light years. Billions of Krythax lived here, and millions of ships protected it. Seo-Yon's fleet arrived at the edge of the system and stopped. They did not attack. They did not even power up their weapons. They simply waited. On the surface, the great queens felt confusion ripple through the swarm intelligence. Humans had been unpredictable throughout this entire war, but this made no tactical sense. The human fleet was vastly outnumbered. They should either attack with surprise or retreat. Instead, they did nothing. Then the broadcast began. Every Krythax ship, every queen, every node in the swarm network received the same transmission. It was not a message of surrender or a demand for peace. It was a history lesson. The broadcast showed Earth's past. It showed human wars spanning thousands of years, armies clashing with swords and spears, cities burning, millions dying. The images were brutal and unfiltered. Then it showed humanity's technological wars, weapons that could level cities in an instant, poisons that killed millions, machines designed purely to end life as efficiently as possible. The swarm watched as humans deployed horrors against each other that made the Krythax method seem merciful by comparison. General Krath watched the broadcast from his observation ship, his scales turning colors rapidly. "What is she doing? Why is she showing them this?" Ambassador Minjun stood beside him. "She is teaching them who humans really are." The broadcast continued. It showed atomic weapons destroying cities in blinding light. It showed the aftermath, the radiation sickness, the generations of suffering. It showed chemical weapons that dissolved lungs, biological weapons that turned bodies against themselves, orbital weapons that could crack continents. But then the broadcast changed. It showed humans choosing to stop. It showed treaties being signed, weapons being destroyed. It showed humanity looking at what they had become and deciding to change. Finally, Seoyan's voice came through the transmission, speaking directly to the swarm. "We are humanity. For thousands of years, we fought ourselves. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We nearly made ourselves extinct. We became so efficient at killing that we frightened ourselves." Images of human children playing, human cities thriving, human culture flourishing filled the broadcast. "We stopped fighting because we learned that being good at war does not mean we should make war. We learned that the strongest choice is choosing not to use all the power we possess." The transmission zoomed in on specific weapon systems aboard the human ships, systems that had been visible throughout the entire war but never used. Weapons that Council species had banned centuries ago, weapons that could sterilize entire worlds. "We could destroy you," Seoyan continued. "We have weapons that could crack your home world. We have biological agents that could eliminate your species in days. We have the capacity for total war. We have always had that capacity. We have never used it." The queens felt something they had never experienced before. The swarm intelligence processed the information and understood the truth. Humans had been holding back. Everything they had done, every victory, every psychological operation had been restrained compared to what they could actually do. "You have a choice," Seoyan said. "You can continue this war. If you do, we will fight until you are extinct. We will not want to do this. We will regret it deeply. But we will do it completely. Or you can stop. You can retreat to your worlds. You can survive. You can change your imperative from expansion to coexistence." Silence filled the space between the human fleet and the Krythax homeworld. "We know you can understand this," Seoyan continued. "We have studied your queens. We know you can choose. The swarm is not just an algorithm. You have enough consciousness to make a decision. Make the right one." Hours passed. The human fleet remained at the edge of the system, weapons powered down, waiting. Inside the organic structures on the Krythax homeworld, the great queens deliberated. The swarm intelligence processed everything it had learned about humans. Every battle, every tactic, every unpredictable choice. Humans had defeated them without fully committing to destruction. Humans had shown mercy when they could have shown annihilation. Humans had tried to teach rather than simply destroy. The queens understood something profound. Humans were not bluffing. They truly could destroy the Krythax completely, and they truly did not want to. That made humans more dangerous than any enemy the swarm had ever faced. An enemy who could destroy you but chose not to was an enemy you could not predict, could not calculate, could not defeat through simple mathematics. A transmission came from the surface. The Queens spoke with one voice, synthesized through millions of biological processors. We choose survival. We choose to stop. The words rippled through council space like a shockwave. The Krythax, who had never retreated, never surrendered, never stopped their expansion, had just agreed to peace. The formal negotiations took weeks. The Krythax would retreat to their original territory. They would not expand beyond their current borders. In exchange, humans would guarantee their survival and would not deploy the weapons they had shown in their broadcast. The council chambers filled with celebration. 12 species had been avenged. Billions of lives had been saved. The war was over. But not everyone was celebrating. A special session of the council was called to discuss the human question. The same question that had been asked 300 years ago. What should be done with humanity? General Krath stood before the assembly, his scales showing colors of deep conflict. I have spent 5 months observing human military operations. I have watched them win a war that we were losing catastrophically. I have seen them save billions of lives. I have also seen methods that disturb me deeply. He pulled up footage of human operations, the psychological warfare, the deliberate cultivation of fear, the manipulation of enemy thought patterns. Humans do not just fight wars. They weaponize every aspect of conflict, including the minds of their enemies. They are more effective at warfare than any species I have ever encountered. That effectiveness is exactly why they are dangerous. Ambassador Min Jun stood to respond. General Krath speaks the truth. We are effective at war. That is not something we are proud of. It is simply something we learned through hard experience. Then you admit your methods are extreme? Asked the Vaxian counselor. Our methods are necessary, Min Jun corrected. When you fight an enemy who does not follow your rules, you must adapt or die. We adapted. We did what was required to win. But we never forgot our limits. We never deployed weapons of total destruction. We never targeted civilians. We never committed the atrocities we are capable of committing. That is supposed to be reassuring? The Torgan representative demanded. You remind us that you could have been worse? Commander Seo Yan, attending the session in person for the first time, spoke up. Yes, that is exactly what we are reminding you. We could have been worse. We chose not to be. That choice matters. She stood and walked to the center of the chamber. 300 years ago, you banned us because we made war too efficient. You were right to ban us. We had become too good at killing. We needed time to remember how to be peaceful. You gave us that time, and we used it well. And now? Asked the High Chancellor. Now you need to decide if you will ban us again. We will accept whatever decision you make. But understand this. We did not enjoy this war. We did not want to remember all the lessons we learned fighting ourselves. We did it because species were dying. We did it because someone needed to stop the Krythax. We did it because it was right, not because it was easy. The debate lasted for days. Some species wanted humans banned immediately. Others argued that humans should be allowed to remain active, that their methods, while disturbing, were effective and necessary. Finally, a compromise was reached. Humans would not be banned from military operations. However, they would operate under strict oversight. Human forces could be deployed only with council approval. Human methods would be reviewed and restricted. Weapons of total destruction would remain prohibited. It was not the total ban some species wanted, nor the complete freedom others advocated for. It was a middle path, acknowledging both humanity's effectiveness and the danger they represented. Seo Yan accepted the decision without complaint. "We will follow your restrictions. We will submit to your oversight. We never wanted unrestricted power. We just wanted to save lives." The human fleet began to depart, soldiers returning to their long sleep. Most would go back into cryogenic suspension, waiting for the next time they were needed, hoping that time would never come. On the final day before entering cryo-sleep, Seo Yan stood with Min Jun on the observation deck of their facility. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. "We saved billions of lives," Min Jun replied. "How could that not be right?" "But at what cost? We taught the galaxy lessons they may not have wanted to learn. We showed them that war can be won through fear and manipulation, not just honor and courage." Min Jun considered this carefully. "We also showed them that the strongest choice is choosing not to use all your power. We could have destroyed the Krythax. We chose to teach them instead. That is the lesson that matters." Seo Yan nodded slowly. "I hope the galaxy remembers that part. I hope they do not just remember that humans are good at war. I hope they remember that humans are even better at choosing peace." She entered her cryopod, ready to sleep for however long peace lasted. As the pod sealed and cold crept through her body, she thought about the future, about whether humanity would be called to war again, about whether the galaxy would ever truly trust them. But mostly, she thought about the Krythax queen they had studied, the queen who had learned that survival sometimes meant changing everything you thought you were. The galaxy had learned that lesson too. Sometimes the scariest thing was not an enemy who wanted to destroy you. It was an enemy who could destroy you but chose not to, an enemy who offered you the chance to survive, to change, to become something better. That was humanity's true weapon, not their tactics or their technology or their psychological warfare. Their true weapon was the choice to offer mercy when they had every reason to show none. The galaxy would remember why humanity had been banned from the battlefield, but they would also remember why humanity had been asked to return. And in deep space, a message began broadcasting on all known frequencies, a simple warning that would make would-be conquerors pause and reconsider. This space is protected by humanity. We do not want war. We do not seek conflict. But if you threaten the innocent, if you refuse all other options, if you leave us no choice, then you will learn what we are capable of. And you will learn that our greatest mercy is that we always offer you the choice to walk away. Choose wisely. The message played on repeat, transmitted from automated beacons throughout Council space. It was not a threat. It was a promise. And across the galaxy, species both grateful and fearful understood exactly what it meant. Humanity was awake when needed, and that was both the galaxy's greatest protection and its deepest fear.
The council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive station where representatives from 300 species gathered to make decisions that shaped the galaxy. Today, the air shimmered with tension as holographic displays showed a small, blue-green world orbiting a yellow sun in the outer reaches of known space. Ambassador Thexan of the Vorqual Collective raised 3 of his 4 arms, calling for attention. His species had led the Galactic Council for 8,000 years, and his voice carried the weight of that history. Honored delegates, we have discovered a species that requires our immediate protection. The Yvari, as our xenologists have named them, are unlike any people we have encountered in recent memory. The displays shifted, showing images of the Yvari themselves. They stood perhaps 4 feet tall, with soft gray skin and large, gentle eyes that seemed to hold an ancient sadness. Their bodies were slight, almost fragile, with delicate 3-fingered hands that moved with careful precision. They lived in small villages, built from natural materials, creating art and music that resonated with a haunting beauty. The Yvari are telepathic, Thexan continued. They share thoughts, emotions, and memories with one another. They have never known violence. In their entire recorded history, spanning at least 20,000 years, they have never raised a hand against one of their own. A murmur ran through the chamber. Such a thing was almost unheard of. Even the most peaceful species had some history of conflict. Some moment when survival demanded harsh choices. They are completely pacifist, added Dr. Selvik, the Vorqual's chief xenologist. Our observation teams report that they cannot even conceive of intentionally harming another living being. The concept is so foreign to their telepathic nature that attempting to explain warfare to them causes them psychological distress. Ambassador G1 Park of Earth sat quietly in the human delegation section, her dark eyes studying the images carefully. Humanity had been granted junior membership in the Council only 15 years ago, after finally proving they could engage in galactic politics without excessive violence. The other species still watched them with cautious suspicion. We propose, Thexan declared, that the Yvari be granted protected species status at the highest level. Category 1 protection. The chamber erupted in discussion. Category 1 protection was rarely granted. It meant complete isolation from the rest of the galaxy. Military patrols, enforcing a quarantine zone around their entire star system, and severe penalties for any unauthorized contact. G1 raised her hand, waiting for recognition. Thexan's eyes flickered toward her, and she could see the brief hesitation. Humans were still outsiders here, still proving themselves worthy of their place among the stars. The chair recognizes Ambassador Park of Earth, Thexan said finally. G1 stood, her voice calm and measured. We understand the Council's concern for the Yvari. They are clearly a gentle and unique people. However, we question whether Category 1 protection is truly in their best interest. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates turned to stare at the human delegation in surprise. Explain, Thexan said, his tone careful. Category 1 protection treats them like specimens in a museum, G1 said. It denies them any chance to grow, to change, to have meaningful contact with the broader galaxy. We propose Category 3 protection instead, allowing limited contact under supervision, giving them the chance to develop at their own pace while still being safeguarded. Your species has been in the galaxy for barely a generation, snapped Ambassador Krell of the Saxith Empire, his scales rattling with irritation. You cannot possibly understand the responsibility we bear for species less fortunate than ourselves. Perhaps that's exactly why our perspective has value, G1 replied evenly. We remember what it was like to be the newcomers, to have others making decisions about our future without our input. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the vote was overwhelming. 287 species voted for Category 1 protection. Only humanity, and a handful of others, dissented. The Yvari would be isolated, protected by the full might of the Galactic Council, preserved in their peaceful innocence, forever. As the session ended, G1 gathered her notes and prepared to leave. Admiral Minjun Choi, the human military observer assigned to the Council, approached her with a troubled expression. You did what you could, he said quietly. They made their choice. I know, G1 sighed. I just hope it's the right one. Far away, on the Yvari homeworld, the people went about their peaceful lives, unaware of the galactic politics swirling around them. They tended their gardens, created their art, and shared their thoughts in the gentle communion of their telepathic bonds. Children played in the meadows, while adults crafted intricate sculptures that captured the beauty of their world. Elder Mion sat beneath a flowering tree, his ancient mind reaching out to touch the thoughts of his people. He felt their contentment, their joy, their simple pleasure in existence. For 20,000 years, his people had lived this way, and he hoped they would continue for 20,000 more. In the darkness between stars, something else stirred. The Krelith swarm had been watching the Council's deliberations with great interest. They were pirates, raiders, and slavers, caring nothing for galactic law or the supposed sanctity of protected species. They saw only opportunity. Their commander, a scarred veteran named Vexoth, studied the data his spies had gathered. A peaceful species, completely defenseless, protected only by Council patrol ships that followed predictable routes and rigid engagement protocols. The Yvari could be captured and sold to the highest bidder as servants, pets, or curiosities for the wealthy of a dozen different empires. "Begin preparations," Vexoth ordered. "We move in 3 cycles." His subordinates scattered to ready the fleet. The Krellith had learned long ago that the Council was slow to act, bound by endless debates and procedures. By the time they organized a proper response, the swarm would be long gone with their prize. In the Council chambers, the protection protocols were being implemented. Patrol routes were established. Warning beacons were positioned at the edge of the Yvari system, and strict no-contact orders were distributed to every registered ship in the sector. G1 watched the proceedings and felt a cold knot of worry in her stomach. They were building a cage of protection around the Yvari, one that looked strong but had never been truly tested. She thought of Earth's history, of all the times good intentions had led to terrible outcomes, of how protection without strength was just another word for vulnerability. "I hope we're wrong about this," she murmured to Admiral Choi. "So do I," he replied. The Yvari remained in their peaceful isolation, protected by laws and good intentions, while in the darkness, predators began their approach. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about the difference between protection on paper and protection in practice. And humanity was about to teach it. The attack came without warning during the night cycle, when the Council patrol fleet was at minimum staffing. Vexoth had planned it perfectly, studying the patrol patterns for weeks, identifying every weakness in the defensive perimeter around the Yvari system. The Krellith swarm dropped out of faster-than-light travel in 12 different locations simultaneously, overwhelming the sensor networks with false signatures and jamming signals. By the time the Council ships realized what was happening, half of them were already burning wreckage tumbling through the void. Captain Thronus of the Vorqual patrol cruiser Steadfast watched in horror as his tactical display lit up with hostile contacts. 3 Krellith destroyers were bearing down on his position, their weapons already charging. "All ships, this is Steadfast Actual. We are under attack. Repeat. The Yvari system is under attack." He slammed his hand on the communications panel. "Sound the alert to Council Command. We need reinforcements immediately." But the Krellith had planned for that too. Jamming fields spread across the system like a blanket, cutting off long-range communications. The distress signal would get through eventually, but it would be fragmented, delayed. By the time Council Command received it and organized a response, it would be too late. The battle was brutally one-sided. The Council patrol ships were designed for law enforcement, not military combat. They had shields meant to withstand asteroid impacts and weapons capable of disabling small pirate craft. The Krellith swarm brought warships built for conquest, covered in scars from 100 previous raids. Steadfast shuddered as plasma bolts tore through her shields. Thronus gripped his command chair as the deck tilted beneath him. "Return fire, all batteries," he shouted. But he already knew it was hopeless. His ship's weapons scored the armor of the nearest Krellith destroyer, but failed to penetrate. A second volley from the enemy ships smashed through Steadfast's main reactor. "Abandon ship," Thronus ordered as alarms screamed throughout the vessel. He stayed at his post, manually broadcasting a final message on all frequencies, hoping someone, somewhere would hear it. "The Krellith swarm has breached the protection zone. They need help. Someone please." The transmission ended as Steadfast exploded in a brilliant flash of light. On the Yvari homeworld below, Elder Miyan was the first to sense that something was wrong. The telepathic network that connected all Yvari began to ripple with confusion and fear. His people had no experience with such emotions on this scale. Then the Krellith landing craft began to descend, and the Yvari learned what terror truly meant. The raiders moved with practiced efficiency, having conducted operations like this dozens of times before. They swept through Yvari settlements with stun weapons and capture nets, rounding up the helpless inhabitants like livestock. The Yavari could not fight back, could not even conceive of fighting back. They could only flee or huddle together, their telepathic screams of distress echoing through their shared consciousness. Mian tried to comfort his people, tried to send thoughts of peace and calm through the network. But his own fear was too great. He felt every moment of terror from his people as the Krelith dragged them toward the landing craft. Felt the confusion and betrayal as they wondered why this was happening to them. The distress was so powerful that it began to bleed beyond their world, touching the minds of any telepathic or empathic species within range. Across dozens of nearby systems, sensitive individuals clutched their heads in pain, overwhelmed by the psychic tsunami of Yavari suffering. At the Galactic Council headquarters, the emergency session convened 6 hours after the first reports arrived. Ambassador Thexan stood before the assembled delegates, his usual composure shaken. "The situation is catastrophic," he announced. "The entire patrol fleet has been destroyed. The Krelith swarm has landed on the Yavari homeworld and is conducting large-scale abduction operations. Our preliminary estimates suggest they have already captured several thousand Yavari." The chamber erupted in outrage and demands for action. But as the debate began, it quickly became clear that action would not come quickly. The Vorqual wanted to organize a proper military response, which would require assembling ships from a dozen different species. The Saxith Empire insisted on attempting diplomatic channels first, arguing that opening negotiations might save Yavari lives. "We must follow proper procedures," Ambassador Krell insisted. "If we respond with excessive force, we risk escalating this into a broader conflict." "The Yavari are being enslaved right now," shouted a delegate from the Marathi cluster. "While we debate procedures, they suffer, and rushing in without a plan will only make things worse." Krell shot back. "We need to consider sanctions, trade restrictions, diplomatic pressure." G1 Park sat in the human delegation section, listening to the debate with growing fury. She looked at Admiral Choi, who sat rigid in his seat. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscles working. "How long?" she whispered to him. "How long for what?" he replied, though his eyes told her he already knew the question. "How long until the council actually does something?" Choi glanced at the debating delegates, at the procedural motions being filed, at the committees being formed to study the situation. "Weeks," he said quietly. "Maybe months." Ji-won made her decision. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. "Ambassador Park," Thexan said, "the chair has not recognized you." "I don't care," Ji-won said flatly. She gathered her materials and looked directly at the Vorqual ambassador. "You created Category 1 protection to safeguard the Yavari. You promised them they would be safe. You failed. Ambassador, your tone is inappropriate." "My tone," Ji-won's voice rose. "Right now, as we sit here debating procedures and protocols, the Yavari are being dragged onto slave ships. They are terrified. They are alone. They believed the galaxy would protect them, and we are failing them with every second we waste." She turned to leave, and the entire human delegation rose with her. Admiral Choi fell into step beside her, along with Captain Sung-Ho Kim and the other military observers. "Where are you going?" Thexan demanded. Ji-won paused at the exit and looked back. "To do what we should have done from the beginning. Humanity is withdrawing from this debate. We will handle this ourselves." "You have no authority," Krell shouted. "Any unauthorized military action will result in immediate expulsion from the council." "Then expel us," Choi said quietly. "We'll sleep just fine." The human delegation walked out, leaving the council chamber in chaos behind them. As they made their way to the docking bay, where the human ships waited, G1 activated her secure communicator. "This is Ambassador Park to Fleet Command," she said. "Authorization code, Park Delta 77 Whiskey. Initiate Operation Righteous Fury." On the other end of the line, Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of the 3rd Human Fleet, smiled grimly. "We've been waiting for that order. Ambassador. The fleet is already moving." We'll be in the Yavari system in 18 hours. The Council will be furious, G1 warned. Let them, Chen replied. We didn't come to the stars to file paperwork while innocents suffer. Third Fleet out. As the human ships prepared to jump to faster than light speed, the Yavari continued to suffer. Elder Mian, dragged aboard a Krelith slave ship, sent one final telepathic pulse into the void. A desperate cry for help that he knew might never be answered. But unknown to him, humanity had already heard, and they were coming with fire and fury. The third human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Yavari system like an avenging hammer. 38 warships materialized in perfect formation, their weapons already charged, and targeting solutions locked. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Indomitable, and surveyed the tactical display. The Krelith had scattered their forces across the system, confident that no one would challenge them quickly enough to matter. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Communications. Open a channel to all Krelith vessels, Chen ordered. Let's give them one chance. The channel opened, and Chen's voice broadcast across every Krelith ship in the system. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Forces. You are in violation of Galactic Council protection protocols and have committed acts of violence against a peaceful species. You will immediately release all Yavari captives, power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded. You have 60 seconds to comply. On the Krelith command ship, Vexoth stared at the human fleet in disbelief. Where had they come from? The Council couldn't possibly have organized a response this quickly. He sneered at the transmission. Humans, he spat. The Council's newest puppies, come to bark at their betters. He opened his own channel. This system is ours by right of conquest. Turn your ships around and leave, or we will destroy you. Chen checked her chronometer. 45 seconds remaining. Did you hear me, human? We have thousands of Yavari aboard our ships. If you attack, they will die in the crossfire. 30 seconds. Vexoth's confidence wavered slightly. The human ships were not withdrawing. If anything, they were advancing, tightening their formation in a pattern he recognized as a pre-attack maneuver. He had heard stories about humans, about their brief but violent wars with other species before joining the Council, about their refusal to follow the normal rules of engagement. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. 15 seconds, Chen said calmly. All ships, prepare to engage. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Precision strikes only. Protect the Yavari at all costs. Wait, Vexoth shouted. We can negotiate. We'll return half the Yavari if you... Time's up, Chen said. Fire. The human fleet opened fire with surgical precision. Their weapons had been designed after studying decades of galactic conflicts, learning from the mistakes of other species, and incorporating human military doctrine that stretched back thousands of years. Each shot was calculated, targeted, measured for maximum effect with minimum collateral damage. Krelith shields flared and collapsed under the withering assault. Their weapons, designed to overwhelm inferior opponents with raw firepower, couldn't track the human ships as they executed combat maneuvers that would have torn apart vessels from most other species. Human crews, bred in the gravity well of Earth, could withstand accelerations that would kill or disable other galactic species. Within minutes, 3 Krelith destroyers were burning hulks, the rest scattered, trying to flee or regroup, but the human formation split seamlessly, pursuit groups peeling off to chase down every enemy vessel. Launch assault teams, Chen ordered. Get our people on those slave ships. I want every Yavari recovered. Across the system, human boarding craft launched from their carriers, small and fast ships piloted by men and women who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. They approached the Krelith vessels with controlled aggression, breaching hulls and deploying Marines in full combat armor. Sergeant He-Jin Song led her squad through the corridors of a Krelith slave transport, her weapons sweeping for targets. The Krelith guards tried to mount a defense, but they were used to fighting species that followed galactic conventions, that worried about collateral damage and proportional response. Humans didn't fight that way, not when protecting the helpless. Song's squad moved like a single organism, covering angles and advancing with practiced precision. When they encountered a group of Krelith trying to use Yvari captives as shields, Song didn't hesitate. Her team's marksman, Private Taeyang Moon, took 3 precision shots in under 2 seconds, dropping each Krelith guard without harming a single Yvari. "Clear!" Song shouted. "Medic up!" Corporal Ji-Hoon Kang rushed forward, his medical pack already open. The Yvari huddled together, their large eyes wide with terror, their telepathic cries of distress so powerful that even the non-telepathic humans could feel a faint echo of their fear. "It's okay," Kang said softly, injecting a sedative into the nearest Yvari. "You're safe now. We've got you." But the Yvari didn't understand. They had never known violence before, and now they were surrounded by it, caught between their captors and these new arrivals in heavy armor, carrying weapons. Their telepathic network was a storm of confusion and fear. Song knelt beside them, removing her helmet so they could see her face. She had learned about the Yvari during the briefing, learned that they responded to emotional honesty, to openness. "My name is He Jin," she said gently. "We came to help you. I know you're scared. I know this is overwhelming. But we will get you home. I promise." Something in her voice, in the sincerity of her emotions, cut through the telepathic chaos. The nearest Yvari, a young one barely 3 feet tall, reached out tentatively and touched Song's hand. The physical contact created a brief telepathic connection, and the Yvari gasped as they felt her emotions anger at the Krelith. Fierce protective instinct toward the Yvari, determination to see this through no matter the cost. The young Yvari turned to the others and sent a pulse through their network. "The humans are friends. They came to save us." More human teams fought their way through other Krelith ships. Captain Sung-Ho Kim led a special forces unit in an assault on Vexoth's command ship, where the Krelith commander had barricaded himself with a group of Yvari elders, including Mian. "You'll kill them if you attack," Vexoth screamed over the communications channel. "I have explosives rigged throughout this section. Come any closer and I'll detonate." Sung-Ho studied the ship's layout on his tactical display. The Krelith was desperate and cornered, which made him dangerous. But Sung-Ho hadn't survived 3 combat deployments by taking unnecessary risks. He switched to a private channel with his demolitions expert. "Minseo, can you breach from the exterior without setting off his charges?" Lieutenant Choi Minseo examined the hull scans. "Maybe. It'll be tight, but I think I can cut through here without triggering internal sensors. Give me 8 minutes. "You have 5, Sung-Ho replied. While Minseo worked, Sung-Ho kept Vexoth talking, drawing his attention away from the hull. "You know this is over, right? Your fleet is destroyed. Your ships are being captured. You can't escape." "Maybe not," Vexoth snarled. "But I can take these precious Yvari with me. The Council will remember that you humans got them killed." "Will they?" Sung-Ho asked. "Or will they remember that you took them hostage? That you used innocent lives as shields because you were too coward to face the consequences of your actions?" The hull suddenly peeled away as Minseo completed her cutting, and Sung-Ho's team poured through the breach in a perfectly coordinated assault. Vexoth spun toward them, his hand reaching for the detonator, but Sung-Ho was faster. A single shot from his rifle sent the device flying from the Krelith's hand. "Mission accomplished," Sung-Ho reported. "Hostages secure. Primary target captured." Across the system, similar scenes played out on every Krelith vessel. Within 3 hours of the human fleet's arrival, the battle was effectively over. Krelith ships burned or drifted helpless in space, their crews killed or captured. Every single Yvari had been recovered. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, receiving reports from all units. 0 human fatalities. 17 wounded, none critically. All Yvari accounted for and receiving medical care. But as she watched the last Krelith ship surrender, she made a decision that would send shockwaves through the galaxy. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Well done today, but we're not finished." She paused, letting that sink in. The Krelith fleet is attempting to scatter and escape. Under normal galactic rules of engagement, we would let them run. But I'm not interested in normal rules. I'm interested in sending a message. On several human ships, Council observers who had been monitoring the battle began protesting. Admiral, the battle is over. The Yvari are safe. You cannot pursue a defeated enemy. Chen ignored them. All ships, pursue and engage. No Krelith vessel leaves this system. Not one. Let the galaxy know what happens when you hurt those under our protection. The human fleet split into pursuit formations and began the hunt. The lesson had only just begun. The Krelith destroyer Ravager limped through space, its engines sputtering, leaving a trail of debris and coolant behind it. Captain Drexus had watched his fleet torn apart by the human warships and decided that survival mattered more than pride. He ordered his ship to flee at maximum speed, hoping to reach the edge of the system before the humans could catch him. He was wrong. The UES Relentless overtook Ravager within an hour, matching its course and speed with casual ease. Commander Park Jae-won studied the damaged Krelith ship on his tactical display and opened a communications channel. Krelith vessel Ravager. This is Commander Park of the Relentless. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Drexus stared at his sensors in disbelief. The battle was over. The Yvari were safe. Why were the humans still pursuing? We are leaving the system. We are no longer a threat. You were a threat the moment you decided to attack a protected species, Park replied. You don't get to just run away and try again somewhere else. Power down your engines. This is your only warning. Drexus made the fatal mistake of trying to run. He diverted all remaining power to engines and attempted to jump to faster than light speed. The Relentless responded with a single, precise shot that vaporized Ravager's jump drive. I gave you a warning, Park said quietly, then ordered his weapons officer to finish it. Similar scenes played out across the system as human ships hunted down every fleeing Krelith vessel. Those who surrendered were taken prisoner. Those who tried to fight or flee were destroyed. The humans were methodical, relentless, and absolutely unforgiving. Aboard Admiral Chen's flagship, the Council observers were in an uproar. Ambassador Pelthix, of the Marathi cluster, a species known for their diplomatic nature, confronted Chen on her own bridge. Admiral, you must cease this pursuit immediately. This is a violation of every galactic convention of warfare. The enemy is retreating. The battle is won. Chen turned to face him, her expression carved from stone. Ambassador, with all due respect, your galactic conventions are exactly why the Yvari were attacked in the first place. That is absurd. We have rules of engagement to prevent excessive bloodshed. Your rules taught species like the Krelith that they can raid protected worlds, and the worst that will happen is they have to retreat and try again later, Chen interrupted. Well, we're teaching a different lesson today. You're teaching them to fear you, to hate you. Good, Chen said flatly. I want every pirate, slaver, and raider in this galaxy to be absolutely terrified of what will happen if they touch a species under human protection. I want them to know that if they attack the defenseless, we won't file a complaint or impose sanctions. We will hunt them down, and we will end them. Pelthix stared at her in shock. This is barbaric. No, Ambassador. Barbaric is what the Krelith did to the Yvari. This is justice. Chen turned back to her tactical display. Now, unless you plan to physically stop me, I suggest you return to your quarters and file whatever reports you need to file. We have work to finish. On the surface of the Yvari homeworld, a different kind of work was already underway. Human engineers and aid workers had deployed the moment the orbital space was secure, bringing medical supplies, temporary shelters, and reconstruction equipment. Sergeant Song walked through a Yvari settlement that had been ransacked by the Krelith. Her combat armor exchanged for simple fatigues and a medic's armband. The Yvari watched her with cautious curiosity, their telepathic network slowly calming as they realized the violence had truly ended. A young Yvari approached her hesitantly. the same one who had touched her hand during the rescue. Song knelt to be at eye level with the small being. "Hello again," she said softly. "How are you feeling?" The Yavari reached out and touched her hand again. And Song felt a rush of emotions through the brief telepathic contact. Gratitude, lingering fear, confusion about why anyone would help them, wonder at these strange beings who fought so fiercely, yet could be so gentle. "You saved us," the young Yavari said aloud, their voice like wind chimes. Why? Song thought about how to answer that in a way the Yavari would understand. Because you needed help, and we could give it. Because leaving you to suffer would have been wrong. But you killed for us. You did violence. Yes, Song admitted. And it will haunt some of us for the rest of our lives. Violence always has a cost, even when it's necessary. But some things are worth that cost. Your lives are worth it. Elder Mian approached, moving slowly through the settlement. He had been one of the hostages on Vexoth's ship, had witnessed Captain Kim's team rescue them with controlled fury and precise violence. The contrast between human ferocity and human gentleness was difficult for his telepathic mind to reconcile. "I need to understand," Mian said to Song. "Your people are capable of such terrible violence, yet you use it only to protect others. How is this possible?" "What it's no. We have Li One." Song stood, looking at the ancient being with respect. "My people learned a long time ago that the capacity for violence is just a tool. It's not good or bad by itself. What matters is why you use it, and whether you can control it." She gestured to the human aid workers helping repair damaged buildings. "We can be warriors when we need to be, but we'd rather be builders." Mian absorbed this, sharing the concept through the telepathic network. The Yavari had never conceived of violence as a tool, as something that could be controlled and directed toward good ends. To them, it was simply an evil to be avoided. The humans were teaching them a new perspective that sometimes, to protect peace, you needed the strength to defend it. In orbit, the last Krelith ship was cornered by 3 human destroyers. The ship's captain, a young Krelith named Syrax, knew she had no chance of escape. She opened a channel to the nearest human vessel. "I surrender," she said simply. Commander Li Sojung of the UES Dauntless studied the Krelith ship. Scans showed it had minimal weapons, was barely combat capable. This had probably been a support vessel, dragged into the raid by Vexoth's orders. "Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded," Li ordered. But her tone was less harsh than it had been with other Krelith ships. "If you cooperate, you'll be treated fairly." When Li's boarding team secured the ship, they found the crew consisted largely of young, inexperienced Krelith. Many had been pressed into service, forced to join the raid against their will. Li made a decision that would have surprised the council observers. "These aren't hardened raiders," she told Admiral Chen over a secure channel. "They're kids who got caught up in something bigger than them. Request permission to separate them from the main prisoners and offer them clemency